ended up in my various crafting and classes and kit making with a bunch of these Peaceful Poppies designer series papers, the squares. So, and I'm sure you're the same, that you end up with a little stack of strips of designer series paper or a little stack of squares or rectangular shapes of designer series papers, which I suppose is like super obvious because it's not like you're going to end up with circles as leftover bits. But I thought what I'll do is I'll show you just a couple of little ideas for using those little tiny like not tiny but you know, little pieces that you end up left over so you can make the most, especially if you have particularly beautiful papers. So the first one's a fairly simple one. I think I can explain the front. So basically you can just cut your card to fit the size that the designer series paper scrap is, whether it be long and skinny or square like this, and then just have a couple of layers of cardstock, some ribbon, and some words. So you can't be more straightforward than that. So this was a 4 1/8 inch square card. So basically I would cut two 4 1/8 inch strips out of my cardstock. Here I've used Whisper White, but then you end up with quite a large scrap. So I thought I might as well use that scrap or that leftover piece that I would normally cut off and fold it up and make a little pocket here so that you could put a gift voucher or a square piece of chocolate or a tea bag or maybe a photograph and tuck that in there, especially if it's a thank you card. It's nice to have a little gift. So let me give you those measurements. So I have basically a piece of Whisper White that was, you know, I've cut it in half this way. So I've cut it the long way, so it's 4 1/8 inch wide. And then I'm going to use my Simply Scored tool. This is a great tool that hopefully you all have this or something similar, or you could use your trimmer and just use the scoring. Make sure you've got the scoring blade on your trimmer. So what I'm going to do is score it at the same, whatever this measurement is, you're going to score it the same so that it's a square. So if that's 4 1/8, you're going to score it at 4 1/8. And then I'm going to score it again at 8 1/4, which is basically 4 1/8 plus 4 1/8. And then you'll end up with this little leftover piece. So I thought we might as well use that. Okay, let me just find my bone folder. There we go. And there we go. And then basically we can just quickly put that together. But you have the concept so that no matter what size your square pieces are, you can just make the card to fit, and then any leftover amounts, rather than cutting it off, you can just use that to fold up into a little pocket. So then we will just put I was thinking I might start doing these Facebook Lives in the evening because a lot of people have gone back to work now. It was, you know, although the lockdown wasn't really anything that anyone would, well, the circumstances, let's put it that way, the circumstances weren't anything that anyone would wish for. It was really nice that people had so much more time to pursue their interests, you know, the things that they normally didn't have a lot of time to do. Okay. So then we just put that on our card front, like so. And then to do the bow, you just need about 10 inches of the ribbon. I'm using the Gorgeous Grape striped ribbon, and this one is on the last chance list. And you tie that in a knot and then switch your hands, or switch your hands, I think you know what I mean. Switch which ribbons in which hand or which tail, and then just play with the bow until it looks about what you want it to look like. Okay, like so. And then I have just pre-done a couple of little labels. Now I've used the Stitched So Sweetly dies, which bundle with the So Sentimental stamp set. Now both of these Maybe I should put them down. Both of these will be in the next catalog. However, they will not be a bundle, so you won't get the 10% discount. So if you like the labels and the nice big words, probably best to get them during May, where you would get them for about $10 cheaper, approximately. I didn't look at exactly what they cost, but it would be approximately that. And I have, as you can see, just white embossed on top of the gorgeous grape, and put that over top like so. So you can decide which you like better, the black or the grape. Either is good. Okay, then inside our card, I've then just cut another strip out of the scrap of the designer series papers that fit on that little pocket, and adhere that on, and just be conscious of if your designer series paper has an up and a down. This one slightly does. All the leaves and all the flowers on that particular one are all going one direction. And then you can do a little inner. Now you could do this one shorter because part of it's going to get covered by the pocket if you wanted to, but I just did it the whole length. Either way. Then before you put that pocket down, a nice little extra is to use a circle punch, or if you have one of the old oval punches, just some kind of a little punch, and tuck that in so that it's about halfway on the right and left, and just a little bite out of there, and just creates that little invitation to look inside or open. And then just use your tape along the sides to create a pocket. I wouldn't suggest the glue for the sides. Oops, just the tape, like so. There you go. So that's that. So you've got the measurements for that now, and that's really simple. I wanted to show you as just kind of a bonus for today because I made two. I was just going to make a little square card, and then I thought, why am I cutting off that extra piece? I could use it. So you could just make little square cards, or whatever size your scraps are. Then I wanted to make a full-size card using also the little pieces. So I'll show you how you can do that, or an efficient, or I should say one way. You know, all these things are just one way to do things. Okay, I'm sure someone comes and moves my camera around in the night, because I have it set up one way, and then the next time I go to do a project, it's different. Okay, so this, I've got the same square as I had on that first one, or rectangle, but this time we're going to use the other side as well. So I've grabbed actually two of my scraps, and what we're going to do is cut that. It doesn't really matter exactly where you cut it. You could cut it exactly in half, or like 1/3, 2/3. So just cut it somewhere, and again, make sure that it's going the right you know, if you have an up and a down, that you have it going the correct way. And then I've cut basically a mat that's the size of, or slightly smaller than, a card front. So in this case, it is 3 7/8 by 5 5/8 is kind of my standard card front mat. And then you're just going to take the smaller piece, again making sure that it's going right way up if you have a directional piece, and then you're going to take the other piece that way, and then that little strip we're going to use to come in through here. This is kind of one of my go-to card layouts. It's a really great way to showcase prints, to showcase maybe die cuts, and also to use up, as you can see, pieces of designer series paper, because you don't need to have the whole amount the whole way down there. So this is a good way to use those little pieces. So say you have a bunch of like strips, then what you could do is have a strip here and a strip here, and then a middle, maybe a thicker strip here, or just make them even, and then another strip through the middle, and you can then stretch it out to make the card size, or a standard card size if you want to, for just using your leftover pieces. Okay, then our card base, I've just made this a standard size, so an A4. And actually, before I put that on, I'm going to use some of this, I've totally forgotten the name, and we've had this for years. Burlap, the burlap. Really great stuff. I love all sorts of the ribbons that are or have a real natural texture to them. They always look good with basically anything, either as a complementary or as a contrast. But any, like I've mentioned before, anything with, you know, wood or rocks or brick or this sort of burlappy type of look kind of just always looks good. And actually, I probably should have put the circle on first, but I think I can still just tuck it behind. Actually, I think I'm going to just cut off just a little bite off of that circle. You'll see why in a minute, so that I can tuck it in and just have it there. I might pull it down. I might go down with this like that. Or you can have it perfectly centered as you wish. I kind of like, personally, the off-centered look. Then, actually I'll wait to do that. Now I have the dies cut from the Poppy Moments dies, and I have a confession to make. I was doing the bags for Extravaganza, and I had these flowers on the front, and I enlisted my family to help, and I accidentally told them double the amount that I needed, so I have a whole lot of these in my little offcuts drawer. So you might keep seeing these for a little while in exactly this color. So what I've done is I've taken the fill or the solid flower and just wrinkled it up. You don't have to do that, but I like that just for a little bit of texture. And then use dimensionals on those. But actually, to be honest, it's really great to have a drawer full of flowers. I knew someone who did that with all of her scraps. She didn't have any scraps, and what she did was just used her flower punches and just had a drawer full of flower punches. So anytime she needed an embellishment, she just had flowers ready to go. Now, I've put on the outline, the darker, so this is Rich Razzleberry and this is Blackberry Bliss. Now they do match up perfectly, but I personally prefer them a bit offset like that. So, but you can match them up if you want. Now at this point then, I'll take the burlap and just take a little piece of it and tie that into a knot, like so, and cut, and cut. You could put a little glue dot under there if you wanted, but that stuff, it's not slippery, it's not really going to go anywhere. And then tuck some leaves behind. Now if you don't have it, and if you like it, this little leaf punch is on the last chance list, and I personally think it's just really a good one for just when you quickly need a leaf. Then you don't have to die cut it and just pop them out. They're really great. Then for the flower center, I don't have any of the big gold of these faceted gems left. I used them all in our online Stamp-A-Stack, which is fine. So I'm going to use 3 of these smaller ones. So I mentioned that in that class, that if you just have little tiny things, just do a little grouping of them, and then you can use those as well if you end up with those left over. Sometimes I end up with lots of big ones left over, and sometimes I end up with all the little ones left over, but that's a way you can use both. Now for the words, I have wide embossed the My Friend, and this is from that really awesome Ornate Thanks stamp set that's available now as an early release, but will be in the next catalog. And used the, let me find it, the Stitched Rectangles dies again. I've just used this really thin, longer one. It's a little bit too long, so don't be shy to cut that off. Let me just pull those dimensional backings off, and then just tuck that end underneath so it's hidden. Okay, and then just place that wherever it's going to sort of work around your leaves and your ribbon, burlap, or whatever ribbon you're using. Okay, and then for the inside of our card, I thought I'll pull out the actual stamps. I don't know why, but it feels like it's been a long time since I've actually done some stamping. So I am using the Painted Poppies stamp set that coordinates with these papers and dies that I'm using. And you can see that I've included them too on our little stamp mat here. So I'm just going to stamp the tall poppy there. And let me grab my little grid paper. Gosh, I'm making a lot of noise. And then grabbing Rich Razzleberry. It's still a bit dark, so I'm going to stamp that off and then just use that on that little fill for that flower. And I'll just do that same thing on the envelope. You might as well, while you have everything out and in your hand, go ahead and stamp your envelope too. Okay. Let's get rid of those, and then we'll just put these together. Oopsies. And then, there, be something sticky on my mat. And then put that inside our card. And then we have that. Oh, don't need that. Now, one other thing I did do, okay, two things left to show you, is the From My Heart Faceted Gems. Although they're on the page that's like so pink and very Valentine's Day looking, you know, still, like I always say with like the Halloween pages, have a look at the embellishments, because the embellishments aren't always really specific to a particular holiday. So these gems, I'm just looking for a tiny one, are just pink and reds and whites, which is great for Christmas or for Valentine's, but you know, they're not limited to those things. Looking for a small pink one. There's one, but it's upside down, so I'll just use a red one then. So that red actually tones in quite well with the red in these papers. So just have a look at these embellishments, and I believe these are definitely on the last chance list, and I think they're even discounted now, and they are quite beautiful and sparkly. So here they are on the finished one. Just adds a little something there. And then just wanted to point out on the mat that I'm using today, oh, it's in a shadow. There we go. So that is this stamp, and then this fill stamp over the top. So it just looks like a splatter there, but it actually is designed to fit over the top of those flowers, just as something a bit extra. Okay, so that's all I have for you today. That's a couple of ideas for using your little pieces of scraps for making a fun card or for making a full-size card, how to make those work for you. So I hope you got something out of that. Thanks for joining me, and I'll talk to you all later. Bye-bye.